going on, guys? My name is Andrew. Welcome back to a brand new exciting video. How's it going, Andrew? I hope you're having a great day. Alright, so let's just dive right into it. Editing is one of the most important things to an editor or a filmmaker at all. And that's why there's an Oscar for editing and why so many people care so deeply about the art that is editing. By the way, guys, check out my new hat. It's an Arizona hat, and only the longtime subscribers will understand why this is so awesome. Anyways though, because editing is so important, the editing software that you use is equally important. And that's why today we're going to be talking about the two big dogs of editing in the technological digital editing world that we live in today. Currently I use Premiere Pro, but for about 2 years I used Final Cut Pro, so I have a lot of experience with both of these softwares. And a few months ago I made a video about Premiere Pro versus Final Cut Pro, but I made a lot of uninformed claims in that video, and I really regret a lot of the things that I actually said in that video because they just weren't true, and I got a lot of flack for that in the comments. But now I've used Premiere Pro and After Effects for a lot longer of time, and I'm a lot more familiar with these softwares, so I thought it was time to do another video comparing and contrasting Premiere Pro versus Final Cut Pro. So the way that I actually plan to go about doing this, the way I plan to go about comparing these two softwares is a little bit different, so try to stick with me. Usually when I film a vlog, I have 3 different editing sequences throughout the video. Today I'm going to film a normal vlog with those normal 3 sequences, but afterwards, after filming those sequences, I'm going to go back and talk about how I created the effects for that sequence and whether or not it would have been easier to do those effects in Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to go over a few of my final thoughts about which software I prefer and why I use it. I'm just talking about my personal opinions about these 2 different softwares, so it's important for you guys to keep in mind that these are just opinions, they're just my personal thoughts about these programs and which one works better for me personally. So with that trigger warning in place, let's begin with the first of the 3 sequences, which was the intro. Now the intro is almost always where I put the best of my effects. It's probably a bad habit, but it's just something I do at this point, so you've been warned. It's only downhill from here. Now the first shot in this sequence was this one with the planes. Now there's some fairly difficult compositing that went into this, and I really didn't edit any of it in Premiere, but rather I used After Effects. And that's the first thing you guys need to know. For the vast majority of my effects, I create them in After Effects. And this is the main reason why I actually use Premiere. It's because of that dynamic link. And then I used the transition here, and then we went to the next few clips. These next few clips didn't have much going on in them at all. It was mostly just lining up clips. So at this point, you guys can probably tell that this isn't a great comparison between Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro, because I really didn't use Premiere Pro all that much for these clips. I really just edited all of the intro in After Effects. And then finally, this clip, what I wanted was I wanted a clip with myself in it, with myself in frame, but I also wanted movement in the shot, and I didn't have anyone filming with me at the time. So what I did is I set up the tripod, hit the record button, and then went in front of the camera and just sort of walked in front of it. And then after I got that shot, I then proceeded to get a handheld shot in which I just kind of walked backwards and shook the camera a little bit. Once I got into post, I used the dynamic link, once again I'm sorry, and we went into After Effects, and then what I did is I cut out the part of me walking, and then I used the 3D tracker in After Effects to track that shot to the handheld shot that I gotten previously. So this is the first sequence comparison, and I think it's obvious that Premiere Pro was better for me personally, simply because of how much I rely on After Effects. Anyways guys, sorry about this comparison not being the greatest. Let's move on and we'll get to the better comparisons a little bit later. It's like a rear view mirror. It's perfect. It's such a nice day outside, guys. It's beautiful. Ugh. Whenever I walk Tucker, I like to come by this lake. I don't want to call it a lake because it's really like an oversized puddle, but I'm pretty sure it's just for sewage, but the sewage gives it this really nice green tint. Now I'm gonna head out to go to this field. There's a field somewhat near my house that's almost perfect for doing some flips, so I'm gonna head there and then we'll see where else the day leads us. Like no one on the roads right now too. This road's usually really busy. Right there, that ice cream truck is like the sketchiest truck ever. One time when my friends and I were younger, we took a bunch of those like firecracker things and we lined them across the road. And then when the sketchy ice cream truck came by, he ran over them. It made a loud bang and we thought he had popped his tire. It doesn't sound as funny as it felt back then. It was so much fun. Anyways, I'm gonna sit you guys down now and have a little bit of a session. I just took my tie out here. If there's anything you want on the internet, what do you want?
Donald Trump is horrible.
Okay.
Alright, so I think it's time to break down the second sequence in this video. This flipping sequence is a much better comparison because it was completely edited in Premiere Pro. From my experience in Final Cut Pro versus Premiere, I actually think sequences like this are easier to edit in Final Cut Pro. Lining up clips in their proper sequences was just always a lot easier for me, and even things like this luma fade and the speed ramps take a little bit longer and more effort in Premiere Pro than they did in Final Cut Pro. So if you're not planning on doing a ton of different effects in your videos, mostly just kind of doing basic editing with lining up clips and overlaying music, then I think Final Cut Pro might be the way to go. But once again, this is just a personal opinion. So personally, for me, I think it's easier to edit sequences like this in Final Cut Pro rather than Premiere Pro.
We made a joke about it long ago. Those songs were always on my mind. I used to try your wrong now and then. I'll have the colors on the line again.
Alright, so it's just finishing up doing the rough edit for this video, and I realized that sequence you guys just watched of me building this grill had absolutely no context, and you guys are probably so confused, because it was just me like running around opening a big box and setting something up with my dad. You didn't even know what was happening. But anyways guys, I think I'm going to be wrapping up this video with some final cuts about Premiere Pro versus Final Cut Pro as we go over this third and final sequence. I think there are two main reasons why people opt for Final Cut Pro over Premiere Pro. Those two reasons are simplicity and render time. Now on the simplicity side of the argument, I'm not talking about how simple Final Cut Pro's features are, because they do have some fairly advanced features. I'm more talking about the layout. The layout has a very Apple-esque style about it. It's very user-friendly and just easy to operate in. And that has all sorts of implications. And one of those implications or impacts is just speed of editing. I talked about how my second sequence I thought would be easier to edit in Final Cut Pro rather than Premiere Pro, and part of that is because of this Apple-esque style that Final Cut Pro always had. Now obviously there are some super advanced things you can do in Final Cut Pro, especially when you couple it with programs like Motion. If you look at Ryan Engel's work, his work is super advanced and he does all of it in Final Cut Pro and Motion. And so I think that's the first reason why people opt for Final Cut Pro. The second reason I think people opt for Final Cut Pro is the render time. If you're using a native Apple software on an Apple computer, it's just gonna have faster render times because it was built to be operated on that machine. So at the end of the day, and this part isn't an opinion, this is just sort of a fact, Final Cut Pro does have faster render times. I personally think if you're looking for an editing software that can edit things quickly without a ton of effects, but certainly some effects, then Final Cut Pro is probably the way to go. But on the flip side of that coin is if you really like effects and if you really like After Effects, then Premiere Pro is definitely the way to go. I personally really like After Effects. I think it's a great software and it's just what I'm most comfortable creating effects in. So that's why I personally opted for Premiere Pro. It's because of that dynamic link like we talked about in the beginning of this video. There's no right or wrong answer here. There's no inherently superior program. It just comes down to whichever one will best suit your individual needs. But I will say, right at the end of this, that switching to Premiere Pro and After Effects was one of the best decisions that I ever made. Like I said, I used Final Cut Pro for about 2 years before I switched. And although the switch was very difficult and it took me a very long time to get comfortable in these programs, I am so thankful now that I decided to take the switch, take the step. So if you guys want to start using After Effects more, then definitely look into making that switch. But alright guys, so I think that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Also be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But I think that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Be sure to get outside, film a video, make a difference, and I'll see you guys next time. I'll see you later, and crew. Peace.